Can everyone hear me? Okay. Hello, everyone. Thank you for joining us this evening to welcome author Zoe Hana Mikuta to Washington State University. I'm Megan McCormick, a senior working towards my degree in business management. Tonight will be my first time experiencing Zoe's work, and if the promise of a vivid, wicked, and sapphic science fiction world somehow wasn't enough to convince me already, those of you here in person and tuning in online have assured me that I've seriously been missing out. I'd like to give a special thanks to our BWS collaborators and sponsors, WSU Pullman Department of English, ASWSU, Landscapes, WSU Vancouver Department of English, Jordan Schnitzer Museum of Art, Academic Outreach and Innovation, Elson S. Floyd Cultural Center, and the WSU Common Reading Program. I also want to thank our tech wizards, Rob Baker and Brian Varner, for bringing this reading live via the VWS YouTube page. Thank you to our VWS directors, DJ Lee, Cameron McGill, Peter Chilson, Julian Aniki, Chelsea Ratzloff, and Pavritha Nairan. Thank you to all our esteemed audience for making the time to be with us. Before we begin, a couple of housekeeping items. For those of us joining online, please use the YouTube chat to engage and respond throughout the reading. We will also have a Q&A after the reading where you can ask your burning questions. Our next WSU Visitors Writing Series event will be offered online, and we will be welcoming award-winning poet Dr. Hakai Matabuti on October 5th at 6 p.m. via YouTube Live. And Brian Blanchfield will be joining us on Tuesday, October 19th at the Jordan Schnitzer Art Museum at 5:30. We hope to see you all there. Now I'll turn the virtual floor over to Adam Sindak, who will introduce Zoe Hana Mikuta.
All right, thank you so much, Megan. All right. Thank you so much for coming tonight, everyone, as we welcome Zoe Hana Mikuta to Washington State University. My name is Adam Sindak, and I'm a current junior studying the art of rhetoric at Wazoo and one of this year's Visiting Writers Series interns. And you know, it's so exciting that we can be here in one room together again, but we're also broadcasting this event to YouTube Live to all of our campuses and the general public. I also want to acknowledge that Wazoo locations statewide are on the homelands of indigenous peoples, and we recognize their long presence on all U.S. land and their continued connection to the earth, water, air, and to their ancestors. But before we begin, I'd also like to highlight this year's common reading novel, The Tale of Two Americas, an anthology edited by John Freeman that features nonfiction essays, short stories, and poems about class, socioeconomic, and racial inequalities that are primarily dominant in many regions of the United States. With a featured 36 authors, the book provides an insight into these issues through a variety of perspectives, leading to the narrative that America is broken and our nation is divided through inequality. Our common reading author, Zoe, navigates these issues and more in her debut novel, Gearbreakers. Zoe's work to me is so influential and powerful solely due to the fact that she treads a path in which not many would volunteer in. Her first book, Gearbreakers, incorporates themes of queerness and diverse inclusivity that many books today lack. It is her version of representation that is so memorable to me, and for that reason is why I was so inclined to get her to visit Wazoo. Resilient, loving, and creative, Zoe embodies what many women, men, and trans others of her age aspire to be. She is independent, solely relying on what makes her unique and leaving her mark on the world through the stories she shares. Zoe grew up in Boulder, Colorado, where she developed a deep love of Muay Thai kickboxing and writing fiction. Whilst writing fiction, her hard work came to fruition when, at the age of 19, she secured a 2-book publishing deal with Fuel and Friends / Macmillan, while also studying at the UW Seattle campus. She comments on her love for fiction and writing stories, stating she enjoys writing about deteriorating worlds inhabited by characters with bad tempers, skewed morals, and big hearts. In 2019, she sold the movie rights to Gearbreakers. Moving forward, she's currently working on the sequel to her debut novel. And now, without further ado, please help me in welcoming Zoe Hana Mikuta.
Hi, thank you all so much for having me. It's really incredible to be here. I've never ever done anything like this before, and it's a little jarring, so I really appreciate Washington State University having me. I'm pretty sure our schools are rivals, but I have like no school spirit, so who knows? I just know it's awesome to be here. And Pullman this is such a nice town. I was exploring downtown today, and it just like reminds me a lot of my hometown, so it's nice to be here. Thank you so much for the wonderful introductions. Yeah, just like a little more about me. I'm a junior at University of Washington right now. I'm a creative writing major, and I'm minoring in history of religion. That part's just for fun. I feel like there's a lot of crossover between religion and the study of literature that I could rant forever about, but I won't. I'm gonna read a little from Gear Breakers. It's, as mentioned, it's my debut novel, pubbed end of June of this past summer, all virtual online launch events. So again, this is a lot different. I'm a little out of my wheelhouse, but I'm having a good time. So I'm just gonna start with chapter 1, and we're gonna see how long I read for. Yeah. Oh yeah, I'm like bobbing. Right? Yeah, you're good. Is that good? No, a lot louder. Okay, cool. Because it sounds really loud to me, so just making sure. Okay. Chapter 1, Sona. It makes sense that when the times were desperate enough, when the people were frenzied enough, at a certain point we went past praying to deities and started to build them instead. I never truly appreciated that before. Then my eyes open and I choke at the sight of the bleeding heavens. Even as I grapple for the edges of the bed, dry heaving over its side, even as the red sky burns above me, I understand the logic of it all, the brutal human need for greater beings. Human. I blink once, slowly, waiting for the rest of my thoughts to align. They left those, at least. I sit upright, bringing my hands around to inspect, noting how my fingertips still twitch at my command. They look like mine. All the calluses are still there, hard and smooth like river stones across my palms. I peel back my left thumb, searching for the thin, pale scar that marks its base, where again and again I would bury my nail to suffocate the quivering of my hands. My hands will never tremble again, but not because I am absent of fear now. In that respect, they have not changed me at all. There is no scar. This too makes sense. Calluses have use. Scars have memories and not much else. Keep the soldier and discard her flaws and make her a god. I press the nail of my forefinger to where the scar should curl. Coil inward, tighter, tighter. Knuckle flashing white, wait patiently for the skin to give. The small sliver splits open. A red drop rolls off my skin and breaks against the tile floor. They did not take away my blood, but they did take my pain. I will not get that back up until I am synced with the wind-up, my wind-up. I look back up again to watch the red morning sky, still scattered with specks of aether, and a pale moon that remains resiliently pinned despite the blush of the horizon. If I open my mouth, I could ask for the ceiling to flicker to a star-choked cosmos, or an eternal thunderstorm, or any of a million other fantastical images. Only the best amenities for the Academy's top students. I do not speak. Whatever I wish for will still be glazed red, just like the walls, just like my limbs. I am terrified that my voice has changed. They could have altered it in any way they pleased or just taken it altogether, just like they took my pain, my breath, my eye. It does not matter. Whatever projections splay across the ceiling, they are nothing more than a collection of mirages against cold concrete, just pretty things suffocating hard truths. I have long learned to be cautious of pretty things, of beauty, of the grace of God's formed from steel and wire. It is all just warm skin hiding wires and bolts in the sharp edges of microchips. Move. The thought flourishes brittle with panic. You need to move or the fear will seal you here. I peer over the side of the bed, slowly touch a toe against the ground, testing my weight, waiting for some seam to split up the length of my leg, some part of me they forgot to seal up when they were finished bestowing the mods. I put my other foot to the ground and ease myself fully off the bed. I do not unravel. I do not even waver. There is no longer a need for breath, and without the rise and fall of my chest, I feel so very still. My panic is a soundless, hollow thing. The lights lining the mirror flicker on as I enter the bathroom. The tiles that encase the walls are pure black. Blue stone flecks the white marble sink. I know this. I know this, but as much as I cling to the memory of shades past, everything around me bleeds crimson. Although, bleeds is not quite the right word for it. I have made things bleed before, that red is always contained. It stains clothes and floorboards and lips, only things that I have permitted it to. But this hue laps at my feet like ocean waves and corrupts the air I struggle to remember not to breathe, and it does not feel like victory. This damn eye. The left eye, to be exact. The distinction is important. One is artificial and one is not. One holds red and soaks the world through with it, and the other belongs to me. It takes a while for me to drag my sight from the counter to the mirror, and when I do, wind-up pilot 21019 is there to catch my gaze. She wraps her fingers around my arms, parts my lips, and folds my shoulders inward, and pulls a grating, splintering sound from my throat, part gasp, part ragged cry. Right before the sound dies, it skips into a laugh. What the hells have I done? The pilot moves her hands from her arms to her face, taking inventory of the features. Her father's strong jaw, the curls that bow against it. Her mother's soft nose and mouth, the fine, lovely shape of her eyes, but mine are larger, like they were drawn into place with an unhurried hand, or so she used to say. They never dreamed that their daughter would hold so much more than blood and bone. My name, the whisper comes at a crawl. My name is Sona Steelcrest. Their daughter is still here. My name is Sona Steelcrest. I am still human. I am still here. They could not have carved me away completely, not without also removing the pieces that they wish to use, that they need to use. How lucky I am to be perfect now. I pause, then place my palm over the left eye. Color comes crashing back into place as the mod disengages. Black spills against the tiles and brown pours into my hair and my eye. It is all so much better than the red that gleams beneath my hand, the red that they forced into me. How lucky I am that when the academy surgeons were sifting about, ripping away those pesky human imperfections, they did not burn their hands on every venomous thought that festers under my skin, that they did not think to look closer, where across each vein and bone I have carved out the promise that in time I will take them apart too. I pull my palm away slowly, leaving their eye closed, and stare at the half-blind girl staring back. She is wrought of bolts and wires and metal plates. She is wrought of bone and blood and of rage. My name is Sona Steelcrest. I am still human. I take a breath, allow it to coil through me, to ignite me. I am here to destroy them all. Chapter 2, Sona. There are seams, fissures in the skin, cutting in a neat box in both of my forearms. When I touch one and feel only me, I think to myself, the panel is grafted with your own skin, your own nerves, and this is why you do not have to cry. Heat curling behind my eyes, I weigh one arm in my hand, switch, weigh the other. Feels the same, feels fine. My teeth dig graves in my bottom lip. A knock sounds at the door. The room's mirage wavers before vanishing completely, depriving me of the false morning sky, and instead reveals the concrete-bound window that overlooks the vastness of Godolia. As the crown jewel, the academy sits at the very center of the city, the epicenter of a tightly packed metropolis expanding 50 miles in each direction. Everything past the walls is considered the Badlands, dotted by resource villages and ravaged by wars past. And to the borders of this continent, the city-nation of Godolia owns it all. From this far up, the only things I see are the other skyscrapers with enough height to best the ghostly fog, reaching up out of the mist like lonely cypress trees of a marsh. When the door slides open, I salute with a firm hand, forefinger steady on my brow. Eyes drop to the visitor's combat boots. At ease, Colonel Tether says evenly. I now have permission to raise my sight, but I'm still not permitted to look in the eye. Students are never allowed to look at superiors in the eye. I was unaware of this rule during my first week as a student of the Wind-Up Academy, an instance that provoked this man's heel to seek purchase in my stomach, as well as my side when I had the audacity to drop to my knees. 12 years old, gasping for air on the floor, it was not until I was done gagging that I realized how lucky I was. Lucky that I was hurt instead of discarded, tossed back onto the city streets from where they first plucked me, that when I was broken and starved, they fed me. Lucky that when I was alone and lost, they gave me the chance to be worshipped, to be a divine thing, because they are merciful. Godoli is a merciful place. Tether steps closer, I do not move. He must be able to see it, this throbbing disgust, the sick, overwhelming feeling of wrongness eating away at my every natural peace. How could he possibly miss it when it is all I can focus on, when it is all I can do to keep my feet sealed in place? Steel crest, Tether murmurs low, are you ready to become a Valkyrie? Despite myself, my heart skips a beat, and in the wake of it, a laugh nearly unfurls from my throat. We are small, we are mortal, and I am being asked if I am ready to become a god. There is nothing else I could possibly say. Yes, sir. He turns on his heel and starts at a brisk walk, leading me out of my bedroom and away from the residential wing, down a flight of stairs and onto the classroom's level. We pass the simulation domes where children who span the ages of 12 to 16 are encased inside luminescent glass barriers, arms outstretched for the images flickering within their headsets. From behind their eyepieces, they see armies of autonomous mechas, helicopters rigged with submachine guns and green tanks with cannons aimed at their heads. From within their domes, they shift their stances to evade, protect, and eliminate. One dome we pass holds a girl, her hair tied back in twin tails that end just below her ears. She is barefoot and wears the academy student uniform, black cargo pants and a gray shirt, dark in the places her perspiration has saturated the material. I do not know what virtual war she sees behind her eyepiece, but I do know the moment she loses. Her guarding stance is weak, timid. Her sight flickers to the left behind the green-tinted glass, and she raises her arm up, and hesitates. Whatever is attacking her does not. Her defense breaks. Her small body is flung to the ground with an ear-splitting cry, and her hands clutch at her ribs. She cannot be more than 13. I keep walking. The simulations told me I was damn good at this, at war. They told the academy I was ready to kill, to give me a mecha. But those were simulations. Child's play for any child feral enough. We enter a glass elevator. Tether jabs one of the silver buttons with his thumb before tossing a sickly grin over his shoulder. You look nervous, Steelcrest. No, sir. I listen for the small click that signifies the doors have sealed. I should remind you, he says, turning, head bending toward mine. You do not have my permission to die during the test run. I skim my thumb over my sleeve over the thin gaps carved into the skin there. Or what? His grin freezes. I've misheard you. You have not. I look up, sifting leisurely through his vulgar stone-like features. Across the stubble of his chin, the curl of his mouth, the unfortunate poise of his nose. If I die during the test run without your blessing, what will you do? My gaze claws its way onto his. I do not know what color his eyes are, and I do not care to. There is no tech in his left iris, and it marks the absence of his ability. Perhaps a smidge of skill exists buried beneath the layers and layers of petty arrogance, but it could never measure up to the power that the Academy has implanted in my veins. You are out of line, Steelcrest, Tether growls, and you forget yourself, Tether, I say softly. It would not be fun for you to hurt me anymore, not when there is no pain to make me scream, correct? The elevator slips down into the haze, and the glowing infestation of my left socket becomes the only source of light amid the dark. Besides, I say to a shocked silence, how much of me do you dare damage now? I am truly asking. He wants to break me into jagged little pieces. I can tell by the twitch of his jaw, the way the lines around in the skin around his mouth go taut and pale. He can want all he likes. He does not speak. The elevator sinks beneath the smog and the city bursts into view. Skyscrapers spiral upward into the haze as if the shining beasts have the strength to support the heavens themselves. Every edge and crook is beaded with soft light, and from my tainted sight, it is as if everything is painted over in a glittering crimson luminescence. It pours into the streets winding below, crooked and teeming with movement. Strings of twinkling lights and paper lanterns are woven thick over the streets, sidewalks, and roads alike congested by streams of people.
Food vendor carts blast steam from underneath their painted plastic tarps. Skeletal girls teeter in pointed heels on street corners, wrapped in silks glazed with the street lights, beckoning to the passerby who gawk with wide eyes. It smells clean inside the elevator, like crisp lemon and a tinge of bleach. I imagine the stench of sweat and dirty rainwater and car exhaust of the streets below, but I have not been outside in 7 years. Perhaps things have changed. Like me. Now, I do not know which smell I detest more. Inside or out, this whole city is suffocating. These are the fortunate people down below, being pressed together as they are, living under Godolia's protection rather than its gluttony. The only thing they had to do was happen to be born as one of its citizens rather than one of the bad ones. This has always been the way of the world. Some are born with luck, and the rest have scrambled to survive whatever the lucky ones might do with it. The elevator enters the earth, plummeting down into complete darkness again. Our descent slows, and my disgust thickens as the doors peel back. We have arrived at the wind-up hangar, where the mechas are assembled and garrisoned, where they rest after returning from the Badlands and get the blood and carnage under their feet washed away and glossed over in an innocent, clean coat of paint. Tether snatches my wrist, towing me along faster. His fingernails nip at my skin, but I ignore the dull prickling and allow my eyes to wander across the wind-up-set tower all around us, their gleaming metallic heads nearly touching the 200-foot ceiling. My lip curls. Their sheer size is ludicrous. It is terrifying, and this is its purpose, to inspire and gouge and gorge on that very human feeling of smallness, of helplessness. The mechas are given human-like features, their eye and skin molded meticulously to hold anger in their brows, lips taut in concentration, dagger-like eyes narrowed in their determination. When they are wound by the pilot, their dimmed pupils will ignite into a smoldering crimson hue. Once I begin the winding, once the wires the Academy force through my bloodstream connect with the mecha's central power core, those eyes will be mine. The Valkyrie will be me, and I will be it, and I will move each part with the same ease with which I move my fingertips. The mechas stand divided by their respective units, polished head to toe, glittering sadistically beneath the industrial lights. To our left, the berserker wind-ups, who possess more than enough artillery in their palms and their ribs to level a skyscraper. Next, the paladins, reaching over 80 feet in overall height, but serving more as battering rams than anything else, with a yard-thick layer of iron serving as skin. The phoenix wind-ups shimmer with a red finish, even without this eye cloaking my view, signifying the flames they split from the thermal cannon substituting for their right arms. Any creature that dares come close to their wound state will be met with near-instant second-degree burns. Steelcrest, tether barks. We have stopped, and I go cold, all at once, sick with the urge to run from the feet of the deity before us. We are here too quickly. I cannot do this. I cannot possibly do this. But I have to look, because it is mine, because it is going to be me. I close my left eye, tilt my chin back and up, and swear that arrogant smirk across her ivory lips quirks a bit higher. Greaves that shimmer gold guard her lithe shins, stretching close to 5 times my stature. Past that, a collection of black steel armor plates are bolted to the length of her hips to her chest, breaking in the clefts around her shoulders and spilling down her arms in an assemblage of ruthless, needle-like spikes, tinged by a snow-capped white. And far, far above, she looks outward with a ruby-speckled gaze that flickers dangerously beneath a furrowed brow. A knight's helmet, black and trimmed with gold, is etched with feathers. Her steel hands, clasped together as if in prayer, are encased within a pair of chrome-plated gloves, and between them, a black longsword rests between her palms. Iron outlines its blade tip, providing the barest kiss to the ground in front of us. I am trapped in a wave of awe, disgust, and cold fear. Valkyrie, I whisper, she is beautiful. That she is, trips a voice inches from my ear. We were taught not to flinch, we were taught to strike. But when I turn, fist raised, a hand curls itself around my wrists, quick, startlingly quick, and a face is suddenly pressed close to mine. A red, glowing eye bulging from its left socket twitches over my stunned expression. Well, this is the first time I've almost been punched out by one of my pilots, he says, a laugh lifting his words. My thumbnail hovers an inch away from his jaw, but he does not seem bothered by the near miss, before his proper introduction anyway. The young man releases me and places a hand on his hip. The other reaches back, fingertips curling to scratch at the nape of his neck. My sight catches on the clear rectangular indent spiraling from his wrist to his elbow. My thumb unconsciously skims over the sleeve of my own forearm. "They said you were young, but gods," he murmurs. His other eye holds ice, blue as a clear noon sky. My gaze flicks over the rest of his features, white blonde hair, milky complexion with dimples like sinkholes, an attentive smile. I do not return it. "Name's Jonathan Lucindo. I'm your unit captain. Your belt's on a seal crest, correct?" "Just Sona, that's correct," Tether interjects at the same time. Lucindo glances over to the colonel like he just noticed the latter's presence, and his eyes tread downward, where Tether's grip still chokes my wrist. "I asked her, mister," Lucindo says, lips quirking on the common formality. The expression is gone as swiftly as it appeared, replaced by a chilling stare. "Do you think she's going to start swinging at you, too?" Tether blinks. "Sir?" Lucindo's grin is cheerful but far from war. "Let go of the Valkyrie." A scoff trickles from Tether's lips as his fingers slither away from my wrist like maggots, each leaving behind a crescent-shaped imprint in the skin. "Do not die and embarrass me, child," he spits. I take a moment to imagine the mark my knuckles would leave across his cheekbone, the way I would bite down on the thrill of the fight I have never once dared to chase. And I would win this one too, like I have all the rest. But power comes from finishing fights, not starting them. So instead, my fist uncoils at my side. I smile and say, "I will damn well die when I please." Tether stalks off, most likely to find a place to watch the winding, and behind me, Lucindo chuckles darkly. I turn to find the Valkyrie has offered his hand. My bravado freezes in my chest. I stare at the panel set into his arm, the area where the Academy eased open his flesh and sold God knows what from both of us. Now he stands before me, blinking his eyes as if they both belong to him, pretending that the gesture he offers is full of only his blood and his bones, and not the wires that encircle them. I square my shoulders and salute my new captain, an act he will consider to be derived out of respect rather than a resolution of my own fear. I need my full focus to survive the test run, and I will not be able to retain it if I clasp Jonathan Lucindo's hand and find it cold as the copper that runs through us both. "Well then, just Sona," he says, retracting the handshake and flashing a smile. "Happy 17th birthday. Let's see what you've got, shall we?" Despite this current infestation of gods, the world used to be a truly godless place. Skyscrapers bloomed above the clouds as cities bulged with numbers they could not sustain, besieged by famine and diseases against which they had no shield. Fear and desperation flooded the streets like sewage, and like in ancient times, the human spectrum began to shift in one of two directions, toward gluttony and sin, as people sought pleasure to dull the pain, or towards piety, as people sought the gods to save us all. The desperately righteous carved out a new theology, one that combined the deities of the dominant world religions into a single doctrine, and punished the people who had turned immoral with the proclamation of a twin hell eternity, one purgatory for the sins of the flesh and one for the sins of the mind. This religious fervor only exacerbated unsteady diplomatic relations between the nations. As they panicked and prayed and found it was not enough, found they needed their deities here for them, to kill for them, they sculpted their new weapons of mass destruction in the image of the gods, and they called them the wind-ups. It was a completely new kind of warfare. It is a completely new scale of destruction when people find divinity in bloodshed. 2.5 centuries ago, the world witnessed the beginning of the Springtide War, where the most powerful nations possessed the most powerful wind-ups, using their mechas to claim dominance over the planet's already sparse resources. The battles were hardly fought at all with human lives until Godolia, ruthless in its determination, created the first generation of piloted wind-ups rather than the conventional autonomous systems. It was a bit ironic, I suppose, that they utilized the human factor by ripping out some of the human parts. That was the purpose of creating an academy, to find those with flawless reaction times, who had the knack for battle tactics, and of course, those who possessed the raw instinct that no amount of gears and bolts and wires could replicate. And so Godolia rose, pronouncing itself the capital of the world, what was left of it at least, after the war, littered with felled idols and cut ribbons of dry, dead earth. They tell us the windups were meant to be a beacon of hope. They tell us it is as if the gods themselves had descended to protect us all. They tell us to celebrate red skies and flesh rendered painless, for these mark our inhuman parts, our more than human parts. Yet I've been biting back a scream since I woke up from the surgery. For me and for everyone else living outside Godolia's limits and under its thumb, what had been meant to end terror ended up thriving on it. As Lucindo turns toward the windup, I glimpse the insignia shown across the back of his dark gray military jacket. It is the mark of the Valkyrie unit, a black sword, blade and handle edged with silver threads, stitched painstakingly into the image of the night sky. The only things bigger than us are the heavens, and barely, our spines press fast against the stars. He leads me to the base of my Valkyrie, where a door is etched into the metal of her boot. Look into there, he says, pointing at a small glass orb that juts out of the door. I lean in, but he shakes his head. No, open your left eye. I hide my grimace and follow his command. The door slides open, revealing the inner workings of the wind-up. A ladder spirals up the inside of her calf, and Lucindo begins to climb. The mecha's innards brim with copper and silver wires that hiss with electricity, gears that work together seamlessly, and valves that spew steam over the rungs of the ladder. As we near her chest area, I catch sight of a large box suspended in the same place the heart would rest, the wind-up central power core. Once the chip they implanted in the base of my brainstem sinks to its network, the Valkyrie will be wound and we will be one. That of course assumes my brain can survive the stress. I pause on the ladder, noting the platform that branches off the core's box, coming to rest a few feet above my head. You coming or what? Lucindo calls 10 rungs ahead. Why is there a platform? What? I loosen my grip on the ladder to point. Why is there a need for a platform? He blinks. For the guards to stand on. Guards? Yeah, guards. I keep my mouth closed for a few moments before the curiosity pries it back open. Why is there a need for guards? Gear breakers, of course. I blink. Gear breakers. Did you hear? A berserker was taken out yesterday outside Ollie Hill. A paladin went out last week and never came back. They found that lost pilot at the bottom of the Hana River. Should we be worried about the gear breakers? Worried, another would always say, will be gods. They still don't teach you about gear breakers up there, Lucindo asked, turning back to look at me. I thought they were classmate gossip. A beat of silence passes. I do not think I understand. They are tiny. Yeah, but they're clever, I hate to admit it. Once they get inside, it only takes one of them to bring the whole mecha toppling down. A few snip wires there, a cracked gear there, and I glance over the edge of the platform where the Valkyrie's leg ascends a few hundred feet downward, supported by iron beams and metal plates and ribbed gears, some as small as my pinky finger, others as large as my torso, each feeding into one another. One simple jam in the rotations, and the mecha is scrap metal. This is why they do not teach gear breakers in the academy. It would be teaching us that their gods are delicate. I suppose it's just proof that Godolia is the only truly civilized nation left, Lucindo sighs. The gear breakers, they're all just barbarians. Barbarians who can pluck apart deities. We reach the head, a space expanding larger than my bedroom. 2 long windows mark the Valkyrie's eyes, which glare proudly over the wind-up hangar from behind the grated visor. Luminescent glass is set into the center of the floor, the same size and shape as the base of a simulation dome. From the ceiling above dangle a multitude of rubber-wrapped cables, and at the sight, a shriek begins to creep up my throat. I suppress it as Lucindo turns to me, offering his hand again. This time I take it. He leads me over to the glass, which glows brighter when sensing our weight, and then to the very center of the cords. I can tell he's about to pull away, and my hand involuntarily tightens around his. Heat floods my cheeks. I wish they had taken away my ability to blush. But Lucindo looks at me, eyes full of infinite understanding, smile almost reassuring. I drop his hand. Palms up, please, he says, voice suddenly soft. I raise them, and he gently peels back my sleeves, fully revealing the panels running up my forearms. At a single press, they pop open, and I brace myself to see blood and bone and arteries that bulge with each rapid heartbeat, threads of veins that glisten under the sudden light, to feel raw flesh growing cold against the air. but there is nothing but a smooth silver dish lying within each arm, lined on each side by a tidy row of small sockets. Lucinda sees the shock on my face and chuckles. I was expecting it to be disgusting too, he says, but they cleaned us up pretty nicely, huh? I wipe my features again and nod at him to continue. He reaches up to grasp one of the cords, tugging it down to my forearm. You won't be synced until these are all attached, he murmurs, snapping a cord into one of the sockets with a small click. And once the Valkyrie is wound, take it slow at first. It's almost like waking up in the morning. My left arm is attached, 6 cords spilling into my skin like blood trickling from the radial vein. Nausea clutches at my stomach, and in the wake of it, I think of bolting. I think of wrapping the cords around his neck and twisting, and my hands grabbing the ladder rungs before his body can hit the floor. I think of how many feet I can get before a bullet shatters the back of my skull. I think of death and how I think too much on it and how little damage a corpse can inflict. Lucinda moves to my right, and you'll get the ability to feel pain back too. It's a different kind of hurt though, like ghost hurt, because in the back of your head you know it's not real, and you know you can rip out the cords at any time and it'll be gone. I guess it's a little odd to think about it that way, like part of you doesn't exist, but you will get used to it. I will get used to it. His hand freezes, a cord pinched between his fingertips, hovering over the last empty socket. He glances up at me, dull and glowing, natural and unnatural. Do it, I say. I can't. Not if you're not ready. You need to be in the right mindset, or that little chip at the base of your head is going to fry you. He waits as my silence seeps into the air. Okay, listen, Sona, he says, relaxing his grip a little. The cord leaves his hand to hang in the air. You know why the Valkyries are the most elite unit of wind-ups? Why we're the most valued? Why we handle only the most dangerous missions? I start stumbling to remember my lessons. They are the quickest mechas ever created because of their lightweight metal. They are the most carefully crafted of all the other units, so they have nearly the intricacy of the human body. Their hip, heel, and leg joints are set with detailed tiny gears so they can twist their stance, such as to perform a roundhouse, whereas other wind-ups can only walk or run. They can mirror any fighting style used by their pilot with complete precision. Lucindo shakes his head. Incorrect, Sona. It is not. It most certainly is, in fact, he says, stepping closer. His eyes bore into mine. You mean to say I am the quickest mecha ever created. I fight with complete precision. I am the strongest wind-up. I am a Valkyrie. Say it, soldier. I raise my chin. I am a Valkyrie. Lucinda flashes a grin and reaches for the last cord. I close my eyes and the world ceases to be red or colorful or anything else. The cord clicks into me. A shock seizes my spine, a bolt of electricity that throws me to my knees and causes a cry to tear free from my throat. The jolt forces my eyes open, but I do not find the glass floor beneath my knees as I expected. Rather, Colonel Tether's face is drawn wide with startled features. The rubber of his boots screams against the floor as he staggers backward to escape the space between my gloved fingers, splayed flat against the ground. My other hand is wrapped around the grip of my sword, glinting wickedly in my peripheral vision. I raise my head, noting the number of people who have gone still at the sight of me. Ignoring their stupor, I bring a hand up to my eyes, watching my fingertips twitch in the chrome gleam. Oh, I did not expect it to feel like this. Like nothing new, nothing foreign at all. It is all just me. For the first time in a long time, I feel quite like myself again. I rise to my full height and their eyes follow me, gorging themselves on the god awakened. I take a step, and somewhere in the back of my consciousness, I know that I sense the glass floor shifting beneath my feet, the wires that grace my skin, and Lucindo's gaze boring into my back. I know about my second self, small as those gawking before me, but for right now, we are not one and the same. I am someone she could never be. I am someone who could destroy Godolia. The wind-ups were created to protect this nation. I was created to protect this nation. Godolia needed me, and so the Academy pulled me apart and put the mods in places where there was once breath and life and color and called it my evolution. They said I should celebrate the day the sky bled. I am celebrating. I am reveling. Because they did not simply create another pilot, another soldier, another protector. they created nothing short of their own downfall. This feels good, I say, and I think she is smiling, that she is grinning ear to ear. This feels really fucking good. Yeah, I'm there.
All right, now we'll be transitioning over to our Q&A session. So if you have a question for Zoe, please step over to the mic in the middle.
Hi. Oh yeah, that's a good question. Let's see. I guess from a perspective of a girl, the thing I see most that's uncomfortable from when male writers are writing female characters in a way that's like kind of weird is just like when they're referencing anatomy a lot. So like we pretty much avoid that. That's it's important to be conscious. I think I don't think that you know. I don't think that girls and boys and anyone else like regards certain like I don't know. There's just I'm like stuttering, I'm trying to talk about like I don't know. I think it's important to make sure that from whatever perspective you're writing from, that like as long as it's true to the character regarding situations with empathy. I think that's really a mark of you're not really gonna get someone pointing badly at that. I think I'm like all over the place with this answer, but you just have to be conscious. I think it's really good to have beta readers as well, and if your goal is publication, you also have like a whole team helping you look at it. So it's also a thing of like taking in criticism, of course, and just like not ever taking it personally and always taking it as an opportunity to grow. It is just, you know, with all sorts of perspectives, it's just a thing to practice at. I'm writing a contemporary right now, and one of my POVs is a boy, and I haven't written from that perspective before, and it's definitely a thing where I'm like, I keep having to rewrite it because it's just something new. Just be patient with yourself and you'll get it. So.
Thank you.
Sorry. I just wanted to know, when you were writing this book, did you write it like knowing that you were gonna write a sequel to it, or did you write it like thinking that it was just gonna be the only one?
Yeah, originally I had.
Oh, sorry. I wanted to know if you wrote your book with the intention of writing a sequel, or if you wrote it originally to be like a single novel.
Yeah, originally I was like really optimistic for a trilogy when I was starting out, just because like it was like that classic YA trilogy. It's like, oh, that would be really cool kind of thing. It's something I had to work with my publisher on, because she originally wanted Gearbreakers as a standalone, which is really funny because it ends. It does end on a cliffhanger type of thing, and she's like, we could just leave it. I'm like, people are gonna be mad, but then she read it again when I had signed the contract, and she was like, actually, let's make it a duology. I'm really happy with it as a duology. But that was more like a hopeful thing, like, oh, maybe a trilogy would be cool, but mostly I plan nothing out when I write. So like there's no synopses or outline, I just kind of go, which is like
I don't know, I'm waiting for that point where it's just like I'm gonna crash and burn on that path, but it hasn't happened yet, so.
Thank you.
Can you hear me? Thank you so much, Zoe. That was such an interesting reading. We're actually on, as you know, YouTube Live, so I have a question from that audience. Stephen Phelps wants to know what your sources of inspiration are.
Sources of inspiration. Well, for Gearbreaker specifically, I basically started off this book because I wanted to write mechas really badly. I'm still crazy obsessed with Pacific Rim. It is my favorite movie. I know every line from that movie. Pacific Rim. It's just like, I love that movie so much. It's just, I don't know, like you cannot beat the fight scenes type of thing, and I'm like, I don't know, just like big robots type of thing. But that's what I like about just writing in general, is that like it's kind of like a sandbox situation. I can like make it as like fun as I want to, basically. Like no one's really checking me on that kind of thing, and I'm like, I've worked really hard with my career where I'm like, I don't really want to budge on like my creative freedom in it, just so I can basically do whatever I want, wherever I want.
Thank you. Good evening. Just actually kind of a really basic question, because I'm just something I'm really curious about. What made you choose first-person narration versus third-person narration? Just a very basic kind of question.
Yeah, I've gotten this question before, and like I do not know, cause like now I'm like, I think it might just have been the books I was reading at the time, but it just like, I just started writing first person. I didn't really think about writing third person, which is so interesting because I've written my third and I'm working on my fourth book, and those are third person, and I tried to do first person. I was like, now I can't do this. So maybe it was just like a moment in time type of thing.
Hello.
Hi.
Can you hear me? Cool. I want to know, do you think that your schooling at University of Washington was influential on this book, or do you think it was your own skills and own, kind of like writing prowess that allowed you to get this book, finished and published?
Yeah, so I wrote the first draft of Gear Breakers, and I got my agent before I had started. I signed with my agent a week before I started my freshman year of college, and then we spent basically like the next 2 years editing. And the book is a lot different from what I had at 17, and I would definitely attribute that to not even necessarily like school, but kind of just like being on my own for the first time. I don't know, I feel like I was only conscious like second half of senior year in high school type of thing, and I've really just, I don't know, just been in that more of an individual, being on my own, and I think that more has influenced my craft and just helped me really lean into my voice over time. So I would definitely describe it as that college age, college setting, and not necessarily the classes. The classes are nice because at University of Washington, we focus more on, in the creative writing major, we focus on short stories and poetry, and just having access to those other modes, I think is good to have in my toolbox type of situation. But yeah, I would definitely attribute growing as a writer to me just growing up.
I actually have a follow-up question real quick. Sorry.
Okay.
So, do you think you need to go to school to be a good writer, or do you think it's just as your skills and develop it? Could you develop your skills without having to be in school or in university?
Yeah, you don't need to go to school to be a writer. No, absolutely not. No offense to me.
Hello. I just wanted to ask what your approach is when it comes to world building. I found that it was very interesting, like Adolia, and kind of how you are thinking about making it either a duology or a trilogy, how that affects how deep you want to go into that world.
Yeah, so I mentioned the term sandbox earlier, and that's literally how I've set it up in my head. So basically for Gearbreakers, I started with a very classic sci-fi setting, which is like, it's like way far in the future, nuclear war after nuclear war, basically just like nuclear fried spot, desert, classic. So I have that in my head, like, and it's, yeah, I have that in my head, and then I'm like, okay, now I want like very classic sci-fi city. So like against like the white in my head, there's of the Badlands. Now there's like a sleek black metropolis, and it's like growing like a rod, and then basically like adding stuff around the corners, just like make a map in your head type of thing. But yeah, it's definitely a thing where maybe I had to get to the end of the book to kind of go back and like build up on like the bare bones of the world I had set up so far. Definitely a drafting process. But it can be really fun like that because I don't know, I have all like these blank sets in my head now of the world, so I can like I'm doing it now, or I can like look back into like the city and like the Badlands and stuff. So I think it's good to like set it up almost physically in your head like that, because then you just kind of get into the mindset of it when you're writing. Yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Hi there. I was just curious what inspired you to start writing in general. Like, are you really into reading or?
Yeah, I've been a big reader ever since I was little. Definitely in high school at little, like I would say 7th grade is where I peaked in my reading. But I've always liked to write. It's just like always, I don't know. It was just like always the art I got the biggest kick out of. Like I just have so much fun doing it. And like when I was little, I was the type of kid to like tell myself bedtime stories to fall asleep, and now I'm basically just doing that in longer prose. So I just get a kick out of it.
Well, thank you.
Thank you, Zoe. And Zoe will sign books, which you can purchase back there. And we'll give a hand to Book People of Moscow for supplying the books.